We all know what that sound means, but you know, that's also the sound of money. Just like castor, beaver tails are added value to your harvest. They're used to make unusual and interesting leather products. Sometimes there is a broad market for the tail leather, and most times there is at least a local outlet for the bigger and better quality tails. The tail leather tans up well and is durable. It's used for a lot of applications such as wallets, knife sheaths, and caps. And just recently, there has been an interest in tanned tails by some very high-profile designers as accessories for their fashion lines. They are easy to put up and will add some extra value to your beaver harvest. The tails can be taken off during the trapping season and frozen. When things slow down, just thaw them out and put them up. The tails you choose to put up should be at least 5 inches wide and free from any cuts or scars and bites that take pieces out of the tail. Ernie Moffat from Mazaral Settlement in New Brunswick puts up several hundred beaver tails a season. He'll explain his technique.
You need a sharp fillet knife, what I use.
Ernie starts working his knife in from the back, using the thin blade to cut the leather free from the tailbone. Keep your angle like you are clean skinning, leaving as much fat and gristle on the tail and off the leather.
You go all the way around the end and up the other side.
Then cut along the edge all the way around the tail where you will leave the hinge.
You have to be real careful when you get down to the end because it's really thin here.
Next, you need to free the leather from the tailbone up the middle of the tail.
Have to be careful not to cut a hole in it. That's the bone and the end of the bone and the tail.
You may want to change to a smaller bladed knife like a Havilon for this. Just continue to open the tail as you work towards the front. The tailbone needs to be removed. It should be almost freed up, just a little cutting on the bottom. You should be able to pull it free. Try and take as much fat off with the bone as you can. You now trim up any hide or meat left on the base of the tail.
And I usually cut this hairline and cut this hair off. Be careful here not to cut it in two.
Once the bone is out, open up the tail. Once the leather is free from the bone, all the remaining fat must be cut or scraped off the leather. This is where the long, thin fillet knife works really well. It's very flexible and bends with the contour of the tail. Now you need a good hand scraper to finish up. Any left on will taint very quickly.
You have to put quite a few nails in because it really shrinks when it dries out.
Once the tail is tacked out, it's important to dry them quickly. You need good air circulation. You may want to wipe down any grease that sweats on the leather. When the tails are dry, don't leave them on the boards. The domestic beetles love them and will feed on any fat or grease left on them. The best way to store the dried tails is to freeze them. Be sure and double wrap to prevent freezer burn. So when the demand is there, your tails will be all ready to market. Key points. A. Tails should be a minimum of 5 inches wide and no damage. B. A long, thin-bladed knife is best to work with. C. Dry thoroughly. And D. Store frozen.